Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I'm going to bring you guys a Path of Exile 2 build guide, and it is for the build that I have been playing for most of this last week on stream. So if you have been watching the stream, you know it is a good one here. So here we are playing a Titan. It's kind of like a Righteous Fire style character, but it's coming off of the Minions. There is an Infernal Legion gem that does health-based damage around the Minions, and it is a really powerful gem that you can utilize on many different Minions, but primarily spectres. And while they take damage from this as well, you can weapon swap, and if you use different Minions on each of the weapon sets, they will heal to full when you swap back and forth. And this character is one of the strongest that I've ever played. Minions are quite strong this patch, but they are known for being a little bit slow, and it can be a bit annoying to have to wait for your energy shield to stop being hit so you can recharge it. So this is a very different playstyle, both on how you play the character, but also for the minion archetype. It is a pretty fresh experience. If you've been playing a lot of like the witch style minions, this is not like that. This is a Titan, and we are stacking armor, and we're doing tremendous damage, and it's not like, hey, let's just meme about this. This is actually a fairly optimal build. If you want to play this, Titan is the best ascendancy, and it is something that a lot of people have been looking forward to. If you do want the full build, it will be in written form on Mobalytics. I will link you guys that below, and I will go over the guide and a number of things in-game, because there are a lot of details to this build that are not necessarily obvious, and while I did my best to include everything in the Mobalytics guide, you know, some people don't learn quite as well from text, and some people just need everything all at once. So let's get into it. First of all, you want to use the Bind Spectre gem to bind a very specific spectre, and I will mention why this is the case shortly. You want to go to Sand Swept Marsh, which is the very first zone when you arrive in Act 3, and you want to go to where there's this arch. There's like a tree boss, and while he'll probably just die instantly here, he summons monsters in the fight. He summons Bogfelled Commoners, which is the spectre that I'm using right now. If he gets close, he'll probably instantly die, so I'm trying to not aggro him. Okay, there he goes. There. So these Bogfelled Commoners have a lot of extra health. They're considered kind of like boss monsters. And because of that, you want to res specifically those. You will know if you get the right one because they will have way more health than normal. They will have more health than even like your skeleton brutes, and you can kind of use them as a benchmark. If they have about the same or less, then you got the normal version, which spawns in that zone. And if you got the right one, it will have a lot more health than your other minions. My Bogfelled Commoners have 90,000 health right now, and this is at gem level 28. I am playing on solo self-found. And these specters are really good because when you use the Infernal Legion support, it does a percentage of their life in damage, and you can scale this with most damage modifiers and minion life. So having a really high life total results in a really high base damage for this ability. Now the other thing to mention here is the radius. So in this case it is within 2 meters. And in Path of Exile 1, I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be the case, if you had a large character model, it would kind of like start the radius from the character model. That's not how it works in Path of Exile 2. I thought it was how it worked, but it's not how it works. And I actually tried a bunch of different specters for this build. I even tried one called an Elephant Tortoise, which has the same health as the Bogfelled Commoner. There are other monsters with as much health, but they're really, really big. And that's a problem, because for the Elephant Tortoise, the monster is so big that monsters would approach the turtle and not be in range of Infernal Legion, even with all the area passives, because the hitbox is too big. So in Path of Exile 2, for radius effects from the character model, you actually want smaller character models. because they effectively have a larger area around them where monsters can approach from different directions. Again, the gem links are all on Mobalytics, but I will just quickly explain. Infernal Legion is the base damage. We don't actually care about their attacks. Searing Flame does work, so it doubles the damage of that ignite. Muster works. You do want to have lots of other different minion types, but I only have 200 spirit, so we only have a few, but it's still one of the best gems. Overreach is the best increased area of effect. A Magnify Area 2 has 45% increased area, and it's an int gem, so you don't need dexterity, which is good, but it is a little bit of a problem because you lose 10% damage if you use that. And I use Fire Exposure, just because it's convenient. I do also use Frost Bomb for exposure, which is all elements this patch, but the fire exposure on the gem itself basically allows you to run through the map like crazy. And the idea is that you get this Bogfelled Commoner set up on 2 separate gems, and then you can get the advanced tooltip here with this arrow, and you want on your main weapon set to have like a few of the Bogfelled and enable your muster gem, and on the second one you want to have the same spectre but a different gem, because when you weapon swap you want to heal them. See, they spawn with fresh health whenever I weapon swap, and that's the idea. You weapon swap and get a new set of minions. If I was using the same Bogfelled Commoners, they would not desummon and resummon when I would be switching weapons, meaning they would not heal. Okay. The playstyle is very funny, and if you're not used to sprinting, you're going to love this one. So normally when you press your dodge button, it does the dodge, but if you press and hold the dodge button, you sprint afterwards now. So this is actually how you play this character, because you can weapon swap while you're sprinting, first of all. Another thing is, while most of your other minions will teleport to you when you run out of range, the spectres specifically have like a Benny Hill walk behind you. So you actually can play through maps like this, and their damage over time aura is at about 500,000 right now. I think if you optimize the build for damage, get a few more levels, and play and trade, you can get it into like the 2 to 3 million range. The ceiling is really, really high, and I'll explain how that works shortly here. And yeah, the idea is you just run through maps. Now, while you're sprinting, if you get hit, you will get knocked down, you'll get heavy stunned, but you can weapon swap when you're heavy stunned. So let's say I got heavy stunned like there, I could just weapon swap. When you're heavy stunned, the monsters on the screen, they just kind of pounce on you because they're like, he's weak, let's get him, boys. Well, you can weapon swap and they actually just jump into the flames and they all die. So it doesn't matter if you get heavy stunned, and this character is really, really tanky. The specific minion and gem setup, I think, is best left for Mobalytics because there are a lot of key things in there. But the idea is that one weapon set you have minion army, and the other one you have just spectre and cleric. Having one cleric to heal them basically allows them to stay up a little bit longer. If one of your minions dies, you will have a res timer for all of your minions. Now, this is not true for in town, so I can't demonstrate this right now, but let's say that like the Storm Mage died and I weapon swapped, I would get no minions until the timer would be off, which is why it's super, super important to put Last Gasp or Brutus Brain, which makes them immortal, on all of your minions, so that in the case that one of them actually dies, you have a little bit of a time buffer to weapon swap to not trigger the revive cooldown. And the revive cooldown, we don't spec into it. We have 0 revive speed on this character, 0. So it does take them quite a while to recover if one of them dies. So you want none of them to die. They'll very rarely die because they have so much health passive, so it's fine. As far as the other skills, I do have shield charge because you're active blocking when you are shield charging. You can also active block, which I do a lot. You take very little damage because you have so much armor, so you can active block for a huge amount of time. You can active block pretty much bosses from start to finish. You might want to dodge their red hits, but we are actually not dying to one-shots with this build, even though we're not playing any energy shield. But there is a little bit of a tip. So usually when you shield charge, there's like a little bit of a delay at the end. And people that play PoE a lot and have used this, they usually dodge roll. So what you want to do with this character is do the shield charge, dodge, and then hold the button. So it goes shield charge into cancel into sprint. And then if you get knocked down, weapon swap, and you're good. That's kind of how you play the character. It's really, really simple, actually. You can use elemental weakness if it's like a tough rare, and you can use frost bomb, which applies a stronger elemental exposure than the minion itself. Again, if it's like a strong rare or a boss. It's not really necessary. You can replace Frost Bomb with another minion if you have a lot more spirit, but you probably won't unless you get like spirit on your amulet. You do not want spirit on your armor, as I'll explain here in a moment. I also like to use Unearth, and Unearth basically revives corpses. You get those little guys. They don't do very much, except they're very good in Ritual because there's a lot of stragglers. This build is kind of annoying to actually deal with straggling monsters because the Bogfell commoners, they just run really, really slow. So even though there's a mob here, it'll take forever. Like if I command the minions, it'll take forever for them to get over there. So Unearth is really good for some content like Ritual because they just go after stragglers very quickly. And it's very good for removing corpses because one of the main dangerous things for this build is exploding the corpse of the boss type of situations. Because, yeah, you are really, really tanky, but you don't have like 30,000 energy shield. You can't deal with that type of damage. So corpse removal and ease of access in different fights is very important. So I really like Unearth, but it's probably not necessary. Now, before we get into the armor of things, I do want to explain one thing here. So we are actually playing Mind over Matter, and this is extremely important. I know Gazzy TV was playing with minions on a Titan, and he couldn't really go Mind over Matter because he was using like the Doriani's prototype stuff. And basically, he got to a similar amount of life that I have. I have 2,700 life on this character right now, and he was getting one-shotted a lot. So I am not getting one-shotted on this character. I do have a lot more armor, but that's because he had to use that chest. I can use a high armor chest, but also Mind over Matter gives me an extra 1,600 health pool. This is 1 point for 60% more health, effectively. And this is a real game changer. Now, I have 0 mana passives on the tree. 0. Not even 1. But because I'm playing a summoner, I have to have sufficient intelligence to use the intelligence-based gems. So I need to have like 150 int. So I basically get plus 300 mana from my stats. And you can just get mana on all your jewelry. Mana on your amulet if you want, mana on your rings, mana on your belt, mana on your scepter. These are open prefixes. You would otherwise not get anything useful here. So you can get almost 2,000 mana for free. And that is a huge amount of survivability. Another thing that ties into that, while normally on a summoner you want to use a scepter that gives you the skeleton warriors, you don't want to use that here because we have a very low spirit pool, and the resistance auras give you free supports. Now, this was the case in Season 1 even, so like almost a year ago now. I did let them know about it, and they haven't fixed it, so this might just be how they want these things to function. The resistance aura, you can use things that require additional reservation, and it will not take up additional reservation. So we're using Upwelling. So your minions get 50 damage while you're not on full mana. Vitality, 2% life regen, which is huge. Clarity, 50 mana regen, or Mind over Matter, that's huge. And Warm-Blooded, because freeze is the only real way that you're going to die. If you get frozen and the corpse gets exploded beneath your character, you will actually die on this character. And we get this for free. This costs us 0. Now, these supports are very important because normally you use mana, and Mind over Matter has the penalty of 50% less mana recovery rate. But the real tech here is not to use mana at all. We actually use lifetap on all of our critical skills. First of all, the shield charge is level 3, which is the minimum level. It costs a trivial amount of mana, so it's basically 0. For elemental weakness, we actually use our life, which is why life regen is important, because the mana will take the damage first. So we basically use our life to cast the curse. We use our life to cast the frost bomb. But on Earth, instead of using life tap, I actually just use efficiency, so less cost. The reason I have that is just to enable the 50 damage from upwelling. If I'm doing a boss, a lot of the time I haven't taken any damage, so I actually want to get my mana below full and just keep it below full so that I can actually get that damage bonus. So it's okay to just get a little bit of mana spent with Unearth for that purpose. That's the whole idea behind it. And this setup is ridiculously strong. I actually encourage people to think about it for all of their characters. I do have a health pool effectively of 4,350 health right now, and I have no strength stacking really, no mana nodes. I just kind of exist on this character, and it allows me to get a lot of different passives that I want. And we are playing Titan. You get 15% more life, a little bit of life regen, more armor from equipped body armor, and the most important thing here is the increased effect of small passive skills. We actually get all of the health passives here, which are huge, like literally all of them, all the minion health, We don't get these because they're a little bit too far away. We'd have to spend like 4 points traveling, and they're not that good comparatively. But the idea behind this build, because we're doing damage from the Infernal Legion gem, you want to balance minion life with minion damage. So if I bring up my minion here, you'll see that I have 280 minion damage and 307 minion life. You want these numbers to be approximately the same. For me, the damage is actually a little bit higher because it does not include the upwelling bonus. And this is why Titan is so powerful. Most of these are not from notables. They're from the small nodes, which have a 50% bonus. And you might be thinking, well, why is that such a big deal? Because these are separate multipliers to your damage. So think of it this way. The Titan getting 50% bonus, or almost to each of these, you're going from 200 minion damage and 200 minion life to 300 minion damage and 300 minion life. Now you can get these numbers a lot higher in trade, and if you're higher level, I'm only level 91, but the idea is that, so it does like the base amount of its life, and then we multiply it by 4 and then by 4 again. But if I wasn't playing Titan, it'd be by 3 and by 3 again. So it's 9x damage versus Titan's 16x damage. So the 50% bonus to small, while it looks trivial, is actually giving this character like 75 to 80% more damage with this build. There is no ascendancy that comes even close to this. This is by far the best ascendancy to play Infernal Legion builds for damage. Okay, for damage. And with that in mind, I did take quite a lot of notes and inspiration from a similar build that was on a Lich. I will link the video, and I do have it linked on my Mobalytics page, as you'll see here in a moment. It's easy to play with like 20,000 energy shield, but it is also easy to play with armor. We get 50% more armor from equipped body armor, so we want to use an armor that's just as much armor as possible. Ideally, it's an ornate plate because we actually use our life to cast our spells, so we need life regen in the place of mana regen, and we just get as much armor as possible. My character right now with my off weapon has 29,000 armor, 27,500 armor, and about 80,000 of it against fire and 60,000 against cold and lightning. I don't have that modifier on my helmet, and I don't use the socketables yet, so we can get that way higher. Basically, I take almost no damage from physical, fire, lightning, and cold. It's mostly chaos and big boss one-shots, which is why we have the mind over matter. My mana is not really being drained with mind over matter, because almost everything does nothing until I get hit with like a typical boss one-shot, which our armor does still heavily reduce because we have so much, but we also have a pretty sizable total pool, so we don't get too punished for it. There is also a tech here, so we anoint reinforced barrier on the amulet, which gives energy shield and defend with 120% of armor while not on low energy shield. Right now, I have 0 energy shield. It's very important that your character has no energy shield, because energy shield is taking before the mana damage. It goes energy shield, and then the mana protects your life. So if you have energy shield, it's pretty much always gone with this build. So you need to have no energy shield, so your energy shield is 0 of 0, which is full and not low, so you basically get a 20% armor multiplier. So this character basically has about 40,000 armor for all intensive purposes for physical damage, and much, much more for elemental. And it is a real tank. It is a real chunk. I really like this character. I might even invest in more armor nodes to get that number a little bit higher. But overall, it's very playable and very fun. I just quickly want to go over the guide in its written form on Mobalytics. Again, this is going to be in the description below. And I did take a lot of notes from Kripp'S Lich build, which is also linked there. He does a great job explaining his version of the build, and his version of the build is from a witch. I know a lot of you guys play minions. If you do want to play a similar build to this one and you don't want to reroll Titan, you can kind of see what it's like, because, you know, constantly weapon swapping is a little bit of a niche playstyle. It's, you know, maybe not for everybody. I found it pretty fun, but yes, it is all there. All the ideal gear pieces are here with the ideal bases. I did not include the resistances on each piece. That is for you to figure out. You know, there's no kind of set anything on those. I did include the details for all the gems, for everything. It's all there. All of that and the passives leading up to level 98. After level 98, you can feel free to get like a couple more armor nodes if you wish, but if you play the build to level 98, you probably have a good idea on how the rest will work out and play to your liking. Hope you guys enjoy this one. I'm actually going to continue playing Path of Exile 2 in the days and possibly weeks to come. I've been having a blast this league, and this character has really helped that along. It's been a pleasure to play, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video.